Thank you. Well, good morning, and thank you again for agreeing to talk to me today. So as I mentioned, we record those short interviews with the artists exhibiting at AKA to accompany their exhibitions and put them maybe in a wider context of the exhibition and the artist's body of work and their creative process. So maybe to start with, I would like to ask, how has been your experience with exhibiting at AKA so far? The gallery being so young and working in partnership with Eames Fine Art. So maybe you could talk just a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been great. It's an absolutely beautiful space. I've been working with Kevin for a very long time. I think maybe 20 years or more. He's been framing my pictures, and he used to have a gallery in Bury St Edmunds and he showed and sold my work there. So I know Kevin very well. And he approached me with the idea for taking the exhibition that had opened in London last year. So it's really Eames Fine Art Baby. We worked on the exhibition together with the publisher of the book Out of the Ordinary, and that opened a retrospective of 40 years of prints, opened last year in London. But Kevin knew that I'd exhibited in Cambridge for a long time, so he suggested sharing the show with Eames. So it's been a cooperation between all three parties, really. But it's been great. I hadn't seen the space before except online, so I was very pleased when I saw it.
Yeah, it's a purpose built. So I think that its biggest advantage is the natural light that really brings the work to life.
Yeah, definitely.
So during your opening day on a Saturday, I kind of picked up a little bit that the chronology of the display of Out of the Ordinary exhibition plays a very important role to you. Would you like to talk a little bit about this in terms of what other dimensions that display order brings to the experience of your art and to you?
Yes. So I've been making pictures of my everyday life for the last 40 years or more than 40 years now. And I never really realized until I saw it all together in an exhibition like this, how I'd been making one big story rather than a lot of individual pieces. To see it as a chronology is kind of the story of my life. So it's been very satisfying to see that I'd been working towards one big image rather than hundreds, thousands of little ones.
Yeah, well, you did mention that you're working on something new as well. So do you think that the new projects that you're developing now, does it feel like almost maybe starting a new chapter after this, what has been called a retrospective exhibition, or do you think that this is going to rather build up upon your body of work so far?
Yes, I think it will build upon it. I can't see any major steps or changes that have happened. It's always been very gradual. I don't think as people we turn into somebody different at any stage, whatever happens to us. So it's very nice to see that there has been an ongoing story, but I'm just continuing that story, really.
Okay. So the current exhibition focuses on the prints and paintings. I am very intrigued with the other forms you seem to be experimenting with. So sculpture, ceramics, stained glass, painting on various surfaces as well, such as stones, for example. Yeah. Some of them seem to be establishing a little bit of a dialogue with the past and what is presently labeled as crafts almost. Would you please be able to talk a little bit about this and maybe the sources of your inspiration for those experimentations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes if I hit some sort of creative block or feel a little bit bored or don't know where to go with my work, it often really helps to try a new medium. But I do feel that all of my work, what I aim for is a playfulness. So sometimes to play with new materials throws back new ideas, and it helps the rest. When I go back to painting and printmaking, I feel as if working in other media has added something new to what I'm trying to say. I don't do it very often, but just sometimes I'll try something new, and it's just a form of play, really. I mean, it's always fun, and sometimes I find that having having some difficulty with a medium, or not really knowing it very well, or being very confident with it, will give you a bit of beginner's luck, or something quite exciting will happen just out of complete incompetence. So I think trying new things is always good.
So this idea of play, kind of something that you mentioned as well during your talk at
Yeah.
AKA, and being a little bit childlike with playing with different mediums. This is kind of continuing throughout your work and very important to you, as I understand.
Yes, I think real creativity is always playful, because in the meaning of play that I'm using is to be totally absorbed in your own interior world, so that it's not, while I'm doing the work, it's never about thinking about somebody else seeing it. It's for myself and for my own pleasure, just like a child playing in a sandpit or with clay or with paint or whatever. I just enjoy it, and I think that for as long as I can continue to enjoy it in a playful way, new things come out that I haven't expected. And there's no point doing art if you know exactly how it's going to turn out. Then you're just repeating yourself and making something you know how to do. I don't want to repeat myself. I know that it looks as if, there's a thread that goes all the way through my work, but that thread is just me. That's my style, my personality, my way of seeing the world. But I don't want to use my capacity for painting or printmaking or whatever just to make things that I've made before. I do it for the fun of the play and the surprise of what happens every time.
Yeah. And has any of those mediums kind of stuck with you? Are you particularly fond of any of them, like sculpture or maybe stained glass? Can you see this developing?
Well, I think the stained glass kind of came out of the fact that I like black lines, so it was always an obvious one. And I unfortunately don't have the skill to make the actual stained glass myself, so I had to work with someone. So that's a little bit of a barrier. But I've done a couple of commissions in stained glass, so it's always really nice to see that in windows and things. But I think that the medium that I've really enjoyed most has been ceramics. Unfortunately, ceramics is a difficult one to sell and to make. And I had a kiln for a little while at home, but it's very expensive to run, and I'm not very good at it technically. But I do every so often go back to ceramics, just because I love the feel of the clay and the kind of playfulness of it. And in fact, I'm planning to do some more ceramics in the autumn. I've kind of booked a little bit of time with someone who can help me technically.
Okay, exciting.
Yeah.
And you create both in London and Italy.
Yeah.
Are there any differences between the art created in different geographical places? For example, do you feel that the proximity of the classical tradition influences your work?
I think it might. I just love those 15th century fresco paintings that are all over the place near to where I work in Italy. So I really enjoy that. But I think the main reason I work in Italy is to be alone, to be isolated. It's kind of it's a bit of a retreat, and it's a way of getting away from the practical side of what I do. So the dealing with galleries and people buying my work, and the framing and delivering and all of the things that go around the fact that I'm very lucky that I make a living out of my work. But it does mean that I'm quite often interrupted, and it's very difficult to have time to paint without interruption unless I go away. So going to Italy gives me open-ended days with no arrangements, nobody to see, no time that I have to stop. And it means that I can get completely absorbed, and if I want to, carry on for as long as I like. And also, I think, potter around quite a bit. I think I feel a bit self-conscious about just kind of sitting with a cup of tea and staring into space in London. I always feel like I need to be productive. But in Italy, time kind of slows down. And I do feel that I spend a lot of time sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, just staring out at other people's gardens. but somehow I seem to come back from there every time with some paintings. So it's a kind of magical process. I sometimes feel it's a bit like mining for paintings, like finding something under the surface because of having the space and the quiet to do it.
Yeah, it's it may tie into something that you mentioned during your talk as well, because you did say that you create now a lot more paintings because you have the space in Italy, because you feel less pressured and looked at. So I just started wondering a little bit, do you feel that maybe if you've had this space and an opportunity early in your career, that may have even resulted in slightly different body of work, and maybe would you be more focused in paintings? Would you think about that?
I don't know. Maybe it's very difficult to say what if, isn't it? I mean, I got the studio in Italy when my youngest child left home. So it was very much time in my life when I had more space. And yes, I mean, if I hadn't had children, if I just had a studio all that time, but then I wouldn't have had the subject matter. So, you know, I think I would have been a different person. And there's no point saying if and when, you know, things happen at the right time and your work develops as part of your life. You only have one life, and I'm not willing to be an artist and not be anything else. I don't want to be an artist and not be a mother and not be a grandmother and not be all the other things that I am as well, because those things all feed into my work. So having the space to paint with that sort of freedom has come as a kind of reward, and it comes as that sort of reward comes to everybody once they get to a certain age. You do all the things that you have to do, and you get to a certain age and you have the reward of the freedom to be yourself more. So it's just part of life. Like everything that I do, it's part of my life, and I don't know what it would have been like if it had been different, and I don't know what it will be like in the future, but I can only do what is here and now appropriate.
Of course. Well, on this subject then, your work shows some universal truths the majority of the viewers can identify with, but also they're very universal specifically to women. I mean, how important, if at all, was the idea of womanhood? I mean, specifically female experience of life.
Yeah, I mean, obviously very important because I am a woman. I've no idea what it's like to be a man. I mean, I'm also a person, so they're about being a person. But I can only because I don't use models or mirrors or photographs or any visual reference. I'm trying to paint or draw what it feels like from the inside, and I only know what it's like to have a female body, and I only know what it's like to be a woman, so I can only really do that. And I think, yes, I have created a kind of narrative of what it feels like to be inside a woman's body, but I'm sure that there are overlaps for men. I'm sure being inside a human body is a universal as well, and I hope that even if the pictures are all of a woman, because I can only do that, that some of them men will identify with as well.
Okay. And I guess lastly, do you have any advice for young female artists, young artists that are trying to, you know, because you have all this experience about raising children and having to, you know, do it somehow in conjunction with your work, and also organizing a little studio in your flat. Do you have any advice that you could share with young female artists?
I think just if you have children, enjoy them and don't feel as if they're taking away from your work, because in the end, everything, all of being a human being feeds into your work. And I think there's nothing more boring than art about art. So you may as well live and enjoy it and feel like kind of treasure all the experiences, because they're going to make your art much more interesting.
Okay. Well, Anita, thank you again so much for seeing me this morning. I hope I kept it short and sweet as you wanted. I do remember you don't like Zoom very much.
I know I don't. Thank you, Joanna. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope to see you again in the future. Maybe another retrospective with your new body of work.
So... Sure, maybe 60 years of printmaking, eh? Lovely to see you.
Hopefully.
Good luck, Joanna.
You too.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.